man, she is around the corner. You're paying attention. Dr. You are a doctor, you're a PhD. Hilary Levey Friedman is the new president of Rhode Island Organization of Women, RI now, National Organization of Women. I have to get all my letters in order here. Hilary, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations. We've been emailing back and forth. Had to get you a date. So it's been a couple months since you've taken office with RI now. So congratulations on your new office. Wanted to say and welcome you to the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center here on GoLocal Live. I want to talk a little bit about the organization and the initiatives that RI now has for 2018.
Great. Well, as many of you probably know, the National Organization for Women has been around quite a long time, over half a century. In fact, some people say, wait, you guys are you're still around, you're still doing the same thing. But unfortunately, while women have gained more rights, things are not yet equal, and there are a lot of issues, particularly with respect to racism and socioeconomic discrimination, that continue to be an issue as well. And so in Rhode Island specifically this year, we have a few main priorities. As usual, we're focusing on reproductive freedom, and so there are two major initiatives that are going on this year in the legislative session. The first was the Reproductive Healthcare Act, which maintains a woman's right to choose whatever happens at the federal level with regard to Rhode versus Wade. And the second maintains women's access to free contraception and their ability to access a year of birth control at one time. And so that was actually just heard in the Senate Judiciary Committee earlier this week. And again, this is trying to maintain rights that have been gained under the Affordable Healthcare Act in 2012, but just already in 2018 there is talk about rolling those back at the federal level, and so we are fighting at the state level to keep women's access to contraception.
So continuing those main initiatives that you've kind of always had that focus on, but continuing to fight for more. Let's talk a little bit about almost kind of a new priority, but maybe not necessarily new, but really coming into the forefront this year, and that's affordable childcare, which is an omnipresent issue in America, but it seems to be a top priority here in Rhode Island. Talk to us about how this came to be an issue for RI now.
Right, so we have the reproductive freedom. We're also very involved with the Equal Pay Initiative, and in many ways I see affordable childcare as all part of the same puzzle, right? So women can't earn as much as men in similar occupations if they're worried about childcare, or single mothers are paying out of pocket for childcare in a way that fathers aren't or males aren't. And so we really felt like it was important to get out there, talk about affordable childcare. It is part of the governor's budget for this year. And so it seemed like a great way to get involved in the conversation. And, one of our priorities with Rhode Island Now is to encourage more women to get involved in public life, either by running for office or just getting involved in the process. And so it's very difficult for some women if they don't have childcare, particularly if they have young kids. And so actually next week on Tuesday, when there is a hearing about the governor's budget with respect to affordable childcare, trying to increase quality and work on reimbursement rates for the state, we are actually offering for the first time free childcare at the State House so that more women can come to advocate for affordable childcare for their families and get a chance to have their voices heard at the State House as well.
I think that's incredible, being able to, so if you want to come, let your voice be heard. Oftentimes there is that barrier of, well, I don't have someone to watch my kids, or
it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, it's 4 o'clock. I need to go pick them up, or I need someone, or, they can't come sit in the State House. My kid's at that age where they can only be entertained for so long, or they're not quiet, or they have to go to the bathroom every 5 minutes, or whatever it is, right? So being able to provide childcare so that I can speak up, so that I hopefully can get that access to affordable childcare will become, because if people aren't speaking up, if it's not pertaining to people that care about it, people that matter, it's never going to get resolved.
Exactly. We have to make our voices heard, but we also have to have the opportunity to speak.
Yeah.
So if that's not happening, that's a big problem.
100%. So I wanted to go over some numbers with you, and then we'll keep the conversation going. So I was looking up on the Economic Policy Institute, the cost of child care in Rhode Island. Annual average cost of infant care in Rhode Island is $12,867, which boils down to $1,072 per month. Child care for a 4-year-old costs $10,000 pretty much, and $40. Or balances out to $837 per month. Rhode Island is ranked 9th out of 50 states and the District of Columbia for the most expensive infant care that's in the country. So something else that I found interesting, Hilary, was that even though childcare is very expensive here in Rhode Island, it doesn't necessarily boil down to childcare workers doing well economically, which I found pretty interesting. So 2 out of 3 metropolitan areas, more than 90% of childcare workers don't make enough to afford the basic cost of living in their area. So even though we are paying a lot of money for childcare, the childcare workers aren't able to afford the cost of living in the state. So do you see a problem with that? I'm assuming the majority of childcare workers are women as well. So is that kind of like a double-edged sword and a even stronger battle that RA now has to fight here?
Yeah, you're exactly right. So the vast majority, I mean in the 90th percentile of childcare workers are women. And this is a major problem that most childcare workers couldn't even afford the same level of childcare for their own children. And so part of the legislation and the budget process that's going on right now is to increase the rates of reimbursement, especially for high quality childcare that's coming from the state. And so that increases people's access to higher quality childcare, but at lower out-of-pocket expenses for, again, mainly women. But yes, it's a major problem. It's a major problem statewide for childcare workers specifically, but for many other workers in the state that are minimum wage is quite low, that even if we're fighting to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, even if the minimum wage were raised to $15 an hour for a family of 4, in the state of Rhode Island, you still would not be able to live comfortably in terms of housing and food and all of those things, and that would include childcare as well. So we have a lot of work to do in the state. It's a great state, and we have lots of people fighting at the State House and in other places to make it better, but we can't give up.
What I think is so fascinating here is, yes, that, because you hear these studies come out over and over again, and again, those stats that I read were just off of the Economic Policy Institute. So there are a lot of studies out there that show, you hear time and time again that the cost of childcare is more than the cost of college. That is the case in Rhode Island, where the cost of sending your child to daycare is more than like in-state tuition. How do we convince lawmakers that we need affordable childcare here?
Well, I mean, we don't have parity of representation in the State House in terms of women versus men, and so I think having more female voices who perhaps have dealt with this experience much more closely than some of the male legislators would be one way to do that. Again, giving people access, so the people who cannot be there at 4 or 5 o'clock because they're working or they're dealing with childcare issues, giving them a way to come to the State House would be a huge part of that as well. So that's part of the reason that we're doing this next Tuesday, and all the work that we're doing. It's quite important that those who don't have a voice find ways to express themselves. And I should say that social media is one way that you can do that. I think being able to comment or send an email to your legislator is a much easier than it used to be. And I think it's really important that people do that, particularly on the issues that they care about. I hope that it's these issues, but whatever issue you care about, you should reach out to your legislator.
Probably a lot more issues moving forward. 2018 has already been interesting. 2017 was interesting enough. Which makes sense. RA Now is a very supportive organization for people to get involved and encouraging more women to get involved. You do have an event coming up, I believe it's this weekend, kind of a fun kind of networking event that's encouraging people to write letters to their representatives about issues you care about. Talk to me just about the cohesion, being able to get together with people who have similar interests, like mimosas, muffins,
yes.
and the event that you have coming up this weekend.
Yes, I kind of like alliteration, so it's muffins, mimosas, and missives.
There we go.
So I had to find a letter, a word that sounded like writing letters that started with an M. So, look, politics is a serious thing, and it is important that we make our voices heard, but it also can be discouraging at times or seem hard. And so if you have a social group, that makes it easier and it makes it more enjoyable if you have people to talk with. And so we are getting together on the east side of Providence. You can find out more information on our Facebook page. So we're going to have muffins and mimosas. So even if you just want to come for the free food and drink, you're welcome. But we'll also have all the materials for you to write both your state senator and your state representative to personally thank them for either advocating for an issue that you particularly care about or to encourage them to get involved with an issue that you care about. So obviously we'll be talking about legislative priorities for our organization, but anything that someone feels strongly about, they would be able to come and write a letter. We'll have stamps, all the materials, a way to look up if you don't know who your rep or senator is as well. But again, we just also want to make it fun, and we don't really want to do anything unless we're having a good time, and laughter always helps too.
That's true, especially when you have camaraderie and making again that access happen. So if you are interested, they'll have some information on their website. Let's talk. So we're talking about childcare, access to childcare. The event is on Tuesday. We'll have information on that. Some of the other priorities that RA Now has continuously worked on is access to reproductive freedom. 2 bills. We talked just a little bit about this, but can you talk about kind of how you are working your way forward throughout 2018 to see if we can get any action on these 2 bills?
Well, as you know, it is an election year, so we'll see how much progress is made in this particular legislative session. Certainly people are coming up and testifying. There are a lot of organizations statewide that are very involved with these issues, so we're part of a coalition that's called the Coalition for Reproductive Freedom, and it's not just Providence area where you can get involved. Down in the southern part of the state, there's a great organization called the Woman Project that does a lot of events as well, both social and political and legislative. And so we're part of this coalition, and we will be at the State House through the session, but we'll also be working on endorsing candidates. Rhode Island Now has a PAC, a political action committee. We'll be endorsing candidates that share our views, and we'll have financial contributions for those endorsed candidates, and also organizing manpower to help those candidates get out and canvass and get the word out about their campaigns, so that hopefully also in the 2019 session we'll see progress on that legislation as well, whatever is left undone this year. But as I said, there's always work to be done. So
always seems to be work to be done, and you are a busy woman taking care of it all. No challenge to be unaccepted for you. The other one that you're working on, so we talked a little bit about the 2 bills for reproductive freedom and just that fight for fair wage. We've had a couple people in here. Kelly Nevins is always a great one, talking about the fight for fair wages, raising up that minimum wage. I believe it's through 2020, I think it is, for that $15 raising the minimum wage. What are your thoughts working on getting this done?
Well, it's as I mentioned, even $15 an hour isn't quite enough, but we have to continue to make progress. And also part of that coalition, the Fight for Fair Pay in 15, is equal pay legislation, which is stated as one of the priorities of our Senate president for this session, one of his 3 major priorities. There was meant to be a hearing yesterday, but was canceled because of the storm. I believe it's rescheduled for next week, but we're trying to put more teeth into the legislation so that if you do discriminate against women in terms of wages, or actually anyone who's in a protected class, that there will be more legal consequences, that employers can't say that you cannot share your salary with others who work there, which has been allowed in the past. And so trying, again, there's always work to be done, but working to strengthen all of that legislation is extremely important.
So as we move forward, 2018, a very busy year. So this month has been Women's History Month. We had International Women's Day earlier in the month. What has it been like for you to be part of this organization that celebrates and promotes women?
I mean, it's amazing. I feel like I've gotten connected to so many inspirational women and men who are involved as well, but women across the age range. So we have young women in college or just graduating from college, and then many women who are retired and have their grandchildren. So it's also a way to connect, like when I'm stressed about something that might be going on with my 6-year-old, it's like, oh, just wait, like that'll get better soon. So I think that is a really amazing thing. I think a lot of women in particular have been activated since November 9th, 2016, and so finding ways to get involved and stay involved and harness that energy in positive and constructive ways has been exciting and a challenge at times, but also, again, super important for our nation as a whole and for democracy more generally.
What do you see for Rhode Island at the end of 2018? You know, we're a couple months in, but what do you hope for women in Rhode Island by the end of the year, by the end of the next couple years? Just
wow, that's a good question. Well, certainly there are many more women who are running for office this year, both at the local level and at the state level. And I expect that we'll see many more women declaring their intention to run as well. I mean, it's actually pretty amazing because we live in one of 2 states in the entire country that has a female Democratic governor. So I do hope that we will continue and expect that we will continue to be one of those 2 states. We also have an amazing female Secretary of State who's the first ever Latina elected to office in all of New England. And so we have a lot of really exciting and important women that young girls can look up to, but hopefully we will have more in office come December 31st, 2018 as well. And just to keep that momentum going, to show people that one vote and one voice can make a difference. And I think that's extremely important. And whatever party you affiliate yourself with, or if you don't affiliate with any party, we've seen across the nation that some of these races are extraordinarily close. So I guess I want to say it's also just extremely important to vote and have your voice heard this year.
Go sign up, register to vote, because
Yes.
it's going to be a very busy political season, we'll
Yes.
tell you that. So Hilary Levey Friedman, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure to chat with you. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us today, a busy woman. We're going to get set up here for our next guest on GoLocal Live, so please hang with us as we take a quick pause. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Thanks.